morning. Welcome to Steelers Sanctuary Podcast. I'm Leeann Lomans, joined this morning by Zach Franciscus, Bob Quinn, and Dave Rivera. We are here to talk about episode number 2 of Hard Knocks inside the AFC North. Guys, what did you think about the episode? Zach, start us off.
I wasn't expecting it to be pretty much an entire show, and then here's some other teams that aren't the Steelers. I am very happy. I am. If I was any of the other 3 teams in the AFC North, I'd be really upset right now.
I did wonder if it was going to be as Steelers-centric like the whole season, and I know we've only seen 2 episodes, but...
And we'll dive into this later, but the really quick, what I took away from it is if I was Myles Garrett watching that, I'd be embarrassed. It felt like an excuse episode. I out loud, I said, excuse, and I pointed to the screen.
We said that right before you came in, and Bob and Dave were talking about that earlier. I said, this is going to be the shit we're going to listen to for the next year. Do you know what I mean? That we would have won if Myles Garrett hadn't been sick. And like, nobody hurt. I mean, at least I didn't hear anything about him being sick during the game. You know, they talk about that sometimes. They'll say, oh, so-and-so's here playing, recovering from the flu, or he had some symptoms and he's still playing. But I didn't hear that during the game. And so then just to see him horking on the sideline.
It could have been any number of things. Could have been allergies. He could have, give me a fucking break. I know they got to look for dramatic stuff to put on the episode, but me and Bob were talking about, I'm up to my eyeballs with the Myles Garrett, excuses. And Myles Garrett's this great human being who almost, took his helmet off and killed a player on the field. I don't know what the fascination is with Myles Garrett. I don't know what the league-wide, emphasis is on making him out to be this great player and human being, but
don't you try to justify the fact that they allow these fuckers to continue to play by then promoting them to be these outstanding human beings? I think they do it all the time,
Yeah, it's true. They do it a lot for other players too. But
he's a really good player. Like, I'm not taking away.
No doubt.
Do you know what I mean? So he's a really talented player. So he's money for the league. So then how are we going to sustain this despite the fact that he attempted murder?
And when you think about it, they did the same thing for Antonio Brown. They tried to make as many excuses as they could until they couldn't anymore. And then, then it was over. So,
yeah. I thought it was interesting that it was so Steelers centric, but I felt like a lot of it was canned. Like, and it was kind of predictable. They did Connor and Cam. Now it's Joey and his father coming off of it. But you could tell, like, going back to the draft, it seems like they have been storing Steelers footage for years, hoping they would get a chance to use it. And the Myles Garrett thing, I mean, we'll probably talk about this more in a little while too. If there is a more unlikable guy, I mean, I don't know who it is. When he was given his little speech, I thought when they went to Sheldon instead of him, it was much more effective. I mean, I wouldn't follow Myles Garrett into a hot dog stand to get a free hot dog. I mean, he's just not an inspirational, and we've always heard that kind of about him. He's kind of a weird guy.
Yeah.
But he's not the leader of that defense. I mean, they, in a way, sort of like, although TJ is pumping him up before the game and everything, he's not a vocal leader. I mean, that kind of falls to Cam, and a little bit less so to Minka. I mean, Minka seemed to be the captain in waiting. I don't know. I came away from it. I was excited to see some of the stuff behind the scenes, but some of it I was like, okay, you kind of know this is coming. I mean, what's next? Are we going to hear the Russell Wilson is fake next week? Just not Steelers related. I don't like Jamar Chase particularly, but I came away with a much better opinion last night. I thought the behind the scenes.
What made me like this guy? Come on now. The little kid was so cute. And you got to be careful. You follow Myles Garrett to a hot dog stand, and according to Joey Porter's wife, he's going to turn around and throw him at you. So
exactly.
That shit was hysterical. We were watching it this morning. I was telling my husband got up to go to the bathroom, and I made him come back and rewind to that part to listen to her talking about it. He said, oh yeah, they have that crab thing in Maryland. He's like, never had it.
Yeah, I don't eat in Cleveland. They're going to spit in Joey Porter's food in Cleveland.
They're spitting in my pasta, spitting in my salad. That was funny. That was really
having Joey Porter Sr. on it just made my, you guys know I'm a big fan of Joey Porter Sr. So anytime he's on screen,
And
Yeah,
I
it was
thought that, like, well, a lot of it, like, to maybe the fans like us that watch, like, especially the four of us watch so much and have been fans our whole lives and all of that, this is not necessarily new stuff to us. I mean, we were all watching that Super Bowl where he took his kid out into his kids out into the field with him, and all of that. But I keep having to remind myself that nationally people are watching this show just like I watch the Lions or whoever.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good point.
All their stories. So, I guess there's that part of it too, that, they're making, they're entertaining people that don't know about Joey Porter.
Yeah, I try to put into perspective that if back when they used to have the Texans on or all that if the Texans were on now, I would have to go to my brother-in-law and have to say, who is this person? Okay, why are they doing this storyline? And we know why we're doing this. So,
right.
But
what's the real story? Doesn't it make you wonder that? Like now thinking back at like all the other episodes, that I know probably more than the average person about the rest of the NFL, but I don't deep dive on other teams. So then I wonder, like those other seasons that I watched, like, oh, well, what were the real stories there, while they're showing somebody, whoever it was.
Yeah, you got to remember that the teams have control over what goes out. Most of this is puff piece stuff.
Apparently, except for the Giants.
Yeah, well, that's the crazy part, right? The Giants signed off on making the general manager look like an idiot. I
don't
can't.
understand. I'll never understand that.
I think they set it up to, I mean, honestly, looking back now in retrospect, I think they always intended to dump Daniel Jones. And this was a great way to kind of put it out there because people go, oh, yeah, did you watch Hard Knocks? Yeah, it's no surprise. They don't like him.
Yeah. Well, if they wanted to do that in Pittsburgh, it'd be easy to railroad somebody and make them look terrible. Do you know what I mean? With any of these losses, with any of the behind the scenes stuff that goes on, I mean, you could easily make somebody look bad.
Yeah. Sure.
Really felt. Oh, go for it, Bob.
I was going to say, which, I have the question of, they sort of highlighted Pickens. Oh, he's injured, but, for a guy who's supposedly very loquacious behind the scenes, he hasn't talked a whole lot other than telling Tomlin he really wanted to play. So I'm a little bit curious as to what's going on there. Is the team actively saying, nope, you can't have him on
exactly
camera.
it. Tomlin put squash in every possible thing that could go on.
Maybe they're waiting to really like show him until things kind of die down. Do you know what I mean? And it doesn't, people aren't reading as much into it, but I don't know that that's ever possible.
I bet Tomlin told him to stay the fuck away from the cameras at all times. As soon as he found out, he went right to George Pickens. You stay away from the cameras. You don't say anything.
Yeah.
Did it surprise you guys because we're talking about the team having final say, the drills, the specific drills Joey Porter was doing? I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh, okay, they're letting us see this. I felt grateful. I'm like, thank you, because they probably had to fight for this footage to let us see these drills. So I'm great. Yeah. I like seeing those little things that I know Mike Tomlin is mad is out there in the public.
Yeah, they must have left out the part where they handcuffed his hands to his belt
or whatever his belt. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that some of that stuff is, seems like relatively common knowledge. You got a guy that's handsy. Do you know what I mean? They're going to try to work on stuff to make it handsy. Honey Cuddles says, even reality TV. Is this Mrs. Zach?
That's my wife. What's up,
honey? Even reality TV needs a villain, a hero, and comic relief. Who knows if they're going to follow the formula? Oh, they'll find a way.
I think they already are. Yeah.
Yeah, it's about drama.
I got it.
Honey's watching.
Yeah. Dave and I were talking. Doesn't it seem like it's rushed? Shouldn't they do this like on Wednesday or Thursday? I mean, they had the Monday night footage on a Tuesday episode. I think they could have taken their time, maybe gotten a little bit more behind the scenes stuff in. I don't know. It seems a little rushed to me.
And it was inconsistent, wasn't it? I mean, they didn't, or it's just they can't find. I'm sorry, Wayne. I'm sorry, Dad. They can't find enough Brown stuff to make it interesting because they had the Bengals Monday game on. They did not have the Browns Monday game on, and they did like a 2 replay thing to recap it.
Yeah.
So it really seems like they are digging.
I mean, I know they were on a drive, but almost nothing on the Ravens.
Yeah.
Ravens are boring. Browns have no footage. So let's just show the Steelers and Bengals for a bunch of weeks.
I think the divisional game is, they spent so much time on it. The Bengals game was kind of an afterthought, although, they're not letting go of the dream that the Bengals win out and make the playoffs.
Ridiculous.
They're
the
certainly
best. They're the best. The best duo, the best.
Yeah,
best.
there was a lot of that.
Their talent away from them, but I mean, that was every other sentence.
Yeah, I mean, they may be the best passing duo, but unless they start playing cornerback and safety, it won't matter very much.
Yeah,
I think the game's almost incidental at this point for Hard Knocks.
Uh-oh.
No,
Honey's coming to the defense. Don't hit on the Browns, and the Ravens are not boring. Is she not a Steelers fan?
No, she is. I think she's looking from well, I'm not saying they are boring. I'm saying that from the perspective.
He doesn't
of
hate that they're boring.
This show.
Oh, gotcha.
And we have a family with 4 different teams in it.
Yeah.
So there's a lot.
Yeah.
So I don't mind taking
in our family. Yeah. It really drilled home to me this week too. Like, I know we all recognize this. I know we've all talked about this. I know everybody's talked about it, but it really came home to me this week about why they structured our schedule the way they did. You know what I mean? That ability to be able to see 2 teams both preparing, you lose that this week with the Eagles. They're not going to be in the Eagles meeting spaces, seeing how they're preparing for the Steelers. You know what I mean? It's going to be a one-sided view of that preparation. So that ability to be able to be back and forth between these teams here at the end of the season is obviously, a big part of why we wound up with the schedule that we wound up with. It kind of surprises me that the rest of the division didn't wind up with more of their games, so we were like all packed together at the end.
Yeah, right. Is there another division game this week, or is there no division game this week?
I don't think
the Browns play the Chiefs.
Right.
We play the Eagles.
Who do the Ravens play?
The Ravens are not playing the Bengals, I don't believe. So no, there's no division.
The Ravens and Bengals are done.
Yeah.
One of those rare non-division weeks.
Yeah.
Because then we jump right back into the Ravens week next week, right? So
right.
That'll
Ravens
be
play
the
the
Giants.
Episode.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So no division game this week. So it'll be it'll be the first week without that. So it'll be interesting to see the show next week with just the one-sided preparation. I have kind of enjoyed like the both sides of it, like hearing what the Browns were saying, getting ready for us. Do you know what I mean? Even in episode 1 where we lost, you know what I mean? Hearing that back and forth, that, not back and forth, but hearing that banter and that talk was fun.
There was a little interesting nugget from one of the Browns coaches. He said, TJ Watt does not like to get chipped. So we got to make sure we chip him. I wonder if that's part of the strategy that's kind of making him struggle this year, is the emphasis on chipping him before, he gets to a tackle.
Yeah.
Because they came right out and said it. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go
ahead,
Bob.
I don't know if it's game tape or not. I'm gonna have to keep watching more of it, but I think they're doing it a little bit because TJ and Miles rush the passer in very, very different ways. Myles Garrett rushes the passer. That is the only thing he thinks of. TJ does it. You can tell 15% of his brain is in coverage and watching things around him as he's rushing. It's not a hesitancy. There's just making sure, can I rush fully or do I have to be responsible for something else? And a chip takes that 15% away from him. And then he just has to decide one way or the other. And I think that's what frustrates him a lot. Myles Garrett doesn't have to worry about that. He's just a bull in a china shop, straightforward, and that's what you do. But so I haven't seen Garrett drop back a lot.
Yeah, no, that's not his thing.
I almost wish they would, if the strategy is going to be we're going to put 3 and 4 people on TJ, for him to take a jam step and then drop, because then you have wasted those blockers who are all sitting there looking for TJ. And maybe have, we haven't seen this formation very much, but we know they can do it with the 3 linebackers. And who's coming? Is it Herbig or is it TJ? And are you going to triple team Herbig and let Alex eat? Because if you single up Alex at this point, it's a mistake. It's a huge mistake. So, yeah, and I would kind of like to, and it seems like the teams, they like to kind of attack a little bit in that flat where TJ was. So if he's dropping, maybe all of a sudden he gets a couple of easy cheap cheap picks or big hits for loss. I don't think they would. It's definitely not every play, but when we play Baltimore and they have more of the screen game, I think with Philly it could be a really interesting strategy because they like to swing the ball to Saquon Barkley, and I would love to see Saquon Barkley and T.J. Watt in space against each other.
That would be. Did you guys see the? It's kind of surprised me the slide they had on Myles Garrett. I don't know why. I assumed that Mike Tomlin's PowerPoint presentations were either incredibly serious or incredibly inspirational, and that was it. But it was funny. It was like, okay, guys, we know we didn't do a good job on Garrett. Here we go again. This kind of thing. I was kind of surprised on the the humor that was added to that. That we're all like, we did not do a good job on that. I think we all need to accept that. Here we go again. That surprised me a little bit.
Yeah.
The only thing interesting about the Cleveland Browns is Jameis Winston, right? That's the only thing they have to hang on to.
Right? Like, give us more Jameis talk.
Yeah, nobody likes to see Myles Garrett. Maybe it's just us as Steelers fans. We don't want to see him, but Jameis Winston I could watch all day. We got the full experience. I mean, that crazy Monday night game.
Yeah.
And then he starts out with a touchdown with the Steelers, and then he throws a couple picks and blows the game. It's just he's the roller coaster that.
He said after that game he was going to pray to the Lord to deliver him from pick sixes. I put that in an article the other day. It was the greatest thing I've ever heard. And I said this morning, if we were watching, he was with his family, in that one scene they did where they were all doing their hair or whatever. And I said, his wife, like, what must it be like to be married to Jameis Winston? I said, do you think he pontificates and carries on like that all the time at home? I said that would be he's a
I bet that's genuine. I bet he does. It doesn't seem like it's fake or forced. That's who he is.
Yeah, and I think he's genuinely
and then to be
a good guy. Do you know what I mean? I think he's trying.
Seems like it.
To be his teammate too, because they love him, but at the same time, they know the car's going off the cliff at some point, and it's got to be disheartening to have that. You're riding this wave, and eventually it's going to crash because in every game, inevitably he throws a pick at the worst possible time, and he's so good in between there. Like some of those throws you see him throw.
Well, his stats are unbelievable, and then for them to lose all these games, but then you look at the interception column, and you're like, well, there it is, and it's frustrating. I mean, he's got obviously a lot of talent, and so to see it, like that, just lost. You could just see it on Stefanski's face.
Yeah, Stefanski was so disappointed. He
on
was
the sideline, just like, oh, fuck.
Oh no, buddy. Oh no, buddy.
after the CPAT fumble, that pick to Pierre, which was not a good throw at all.
Yeah.
But if they score there and it's 27-21 with 3 minutes to go.
Yeah.
How about if they made those field goals? I mean, we would have been.
That was another thing.
They would have been legitimately in that game. Do you know what I mean? So I kind of mulled over this game a lot in the past couple of days, and I was very excited about the win. Obviously, excited we beat the Browns, all of that stuff. But I think my takeaway from it has to be that it wasn't a pretty win. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't our best game, but I think for them to show that they can still find a way to win and make that happen, like that's good, and that means something. You know what I mean? Even without George Pickens, because that's the kind of thing you need to be able to do to beat a Kansas City or to beat the Ravens a second time or win in the playoffs. Oh, it's Relic. He can't stay long. You don't have a job. Stop. I'll write your boss a note. Work calls, but I wanted to come on and say Hard Knocks was amazing again. Super Bowl bound, baby. I'll leave this up for the view. Enjoy your day, everyone. Thanks, Relic. See you tomorrow.
I saw some stuff on social media this morning floating the idea that this should be treated almost like a preseason game coming up against the Eagles. And I haven't fully digested it and thought about it, but first impression wise, maybe it's not such a bad idea. If you can you got 3 games in 10 days. I mean, if you can separate this out where we kind of just treat this like, okay, we want to win, but we really want to stay healthy. So again, for the Baltimore game, I don't know if it's the worst idea. I don't think you could get TJ to sit it out. But
I mean,
think
you met Mike Tomlin. He's not. He's already calling it the Pennsylvania State Championship. He's all amped for this game.
I think it was Charlie Batch yesterday, though, that talked about how they've been limiting some of the big time players like Cam snap counts, in the past couple of weeks, trying to preserve them because, knock on wood, I mean, the Steelers to make it to the playoffs relatively healthy is not something that has happened to us in a very long time. No. So I think, he said they've got to kind of mitigate those circumstances and how much do you play some of these guys? And then how much do you risk injuring somebody that you desperately need, like a TJ or a Cam or, Russell Wilson or whoever it is, do you know what I mean? So he was saying, I wouldn't even play George Pickens this week, at all. And if you do, maybe it's a little bit so he's not rusty if he can play, to help keep the rust off. But he's like, we need him down the stretch more than we need him to beat the Eagles. So why would we risk it? And I keep thinking about it. And I don't think that, I don't know that it happens. I don't think it's the worst idea.
Yeah.
I don't know
that's a good point. And last year, if someone would have said last year, hey, listen, you have to trade one of those late season wins, one of the big ones. You have to take TJ out of there, but you get TJ in the Bills game in the playoffs. I'm like, 100%. I'll trade that all.
No-brainer.
If someone said, sit Pickens for the Eagles game and you get Pickens for the playoff game, that's a trade. Don't get me wrong. I want to win this game. I want to win this game badly because it's, like I said in the podcast before, it's flipped for me. The Chiefs are no longer the number one team I want to beat this season. I always want to beat the best on the schedule. I always want to beat the best just to prove that every season I do. And the best that we can on our schedule. And the Eagles are really good, and I want to see us perform against them. I want to see us win. I want to see us people talking about us, but I know not a lot of people care about that. But really quick, I know I've been watching Hard Knocks since the first year it came out because it's everything I've ever wanted about the NFL, that look that I'm not allowed to have at things. Yeah. But they kind of go week by week and they edit week by week. It's different than a lot of other shows. So with this one, I think they're still finding their groove. They're like, okay, last week we didn't show the Monday game. Maybe it didn't work. We heard from a lot of Browns fans. This week we need to. They're trying to figure it out as they go. But I'm wondering about the footage about the Steelers. If we get close to that playoffs and the health thing comes up and they jump back to all the injuries we had throughout the season, if they jump back to all those killer B years where we got to the playoffs and one of the three was hurt. We never played a playoff game that I remember with all three of them in it. And going back to that, if they're like, well, TJ's sitting, but remember this, and they go back and they show Antonio Brown getting hit against that, or Le'Veon Bell getting hurt before, something like that. That's what it reminds me of. I'm like, stay healthy, sacrifice regular season. I'm not used to saying that, but we're 10-3. Bob, I didn't like it when you first said it. The more it's sitting with me, I'm not as upset about as I was when you first said. That's a very logical way to look at that.
It's not in Mike Tomlin's DNA, though, right? He's not going to do that. If there's anything to play for, he's going to play them. It's
play to win.
Well, you look
at which I love. I love that. Yeah, But I also can see the practical side of it too. Do you know what I mean? So I love that. I'm never the person who believes in tanking for draft picks or anything like that.
Yeah, well, that's not tanking. That's not
what I'm saying. I'm just saying the general idea that you're willing to take a loss. Do you know what I mean?
That's not. He's not going to do that.
Yeah.
Well, if you look, I mean, the Chiefs' schedule. I mean, they're 11-1 or 12-1. They play the Browns. That's probably going to be a win. Who knows with the way they're playing? But I mean, personally, I hope they got 4 games down the stretch. They got the Browns, the Texans, the Broncos, and us. I'd like to see them lose to us on Christmas Day, but I want them to win 3 ridiculous, bounce it off the upright, block a field goal, return a kickoff for a touchdown game. Because if you use all that luck in the regular season, come the first round of the playoffs and the divisional, because they're probably going to get the bye at this point, I can't see them losing 2 out of 3 games or 2 out of 4 games here. I can't. I think they should lose to us, but I think they beat the Broncos if they're playing for the number 1 seed. I think they beat the Texans. I think they beat the Browns. So, the Browns use all that luck so that go ahead.
Myles Garrett could go off in that game because their tackles are terrible.
Yeah.
He could end up having another 3-sack game.
They're just so unpredictable. I mean, if God delivers Jameis from the picks that day, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
He could, they could put some numbers up on somebody. It's possible.
And we've earned a very particular right that or privilege that I don't think a lot of people are going to like, but is realistic. If we go into these next 3 games and we come out 1-2, and that only win is the Ravens, we come out with the AFC North.
Yeah.
So that, I mean, yeah, we lost 2 out of the 3, and we did lose to 2 big teams. But if that does happen, it's 3 games in 10 days. It's incredibly unfair of the NFL to do that. One of them on a national televised middle of the week game, just because the NFL wants it to happen. So the best we can do is come out of it healthy and with the division. So I don't want it to happen. I'd like us to go 3-0, but that's the reality, that we've earned the right to do this, the privilege to maybe have a stumble or have a rest, and that we haven't done that.
The Commanders won their division one year, like 9-8 or something, lost it, everybody or something, and somehow magically won. So you win, you know what I mean? Mean Green chimed in. He said, "What a joke! This Cleveland Browns team is an absolute clown show. All they do is run their mouths, saying how good they are, and what do they have to show for it? Absolutely nothing."
It made me so happy. The Cleveland sucks chance with Myles Garrett, like inviting them. I'm like, why are you? Do you have any? Read the room.
It felt, that whole game did feel like, I know we weren't supposed to be talking about revenge and get back and stuff, but that whole game felt like that, from, Myles Garrett shushing the crowd to, then winning, and the Kadarius Toney tossing the ball and, then muffing it. And then now he's gone.
They cut him. Yeah. They cut him.
I mean, all of that was, it felt like retribution.
Well, the Browns have been back in the league since '99. I think it's 25 seasons this year. They've made the playoffs 3 times. They've had 4 winning records. They've lost 20 in a row in Pittsburgh.
They're an embarrassment. I mean, there's no way around it. They're an embarrassment.
Don't forget, though, they won the national championship in like 1926 or something. That's what they always want to bring up.
In the 50s, when they were really, really, really good. They didn't win a championship with Jim Brown.
Right.
I take that back. Maybe they did win one early in his career, but they sure didn't win one in the 60s. Mm-hmm. So,
and Dave brought up a good point. This, from a Hard Knocks perspective, this is going to be a different week, because it's going to feel a little half, because we're not going to get the Eagles side and we're not going to get the other side. So it is going to feel a little weird. Maybe that's why they took as full advantage of it, because they looked ahead and they're like, we're not going to get a lot of weeks
I bet the Steelers are featured again. It's the best game of the floor, right? The Steelers-Eagle game is the best game, one of the best games of the week. So they're going to be featured again.
We have to be featured.
I feel like because of the relationship with the Giants, that there may be some double-sided Ravens-Giants stuff.
I want to see the GM and the owner of the Giants again try to explain that mess. I would love to see that. Maybe you can fire the GM right on Hard Knocks and after the loss or something.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? Is it the game's in Baltimore, right?
I assume. I don't even know.
I'm pretty
sure. Pay very little attention to the Ravens.
Well, the Giants play much better on the road. Remember, they played us pretty tough.
They're not beating the Ravens, Bob. I'd love to see it, but it's not going to happen unless.
Oh no, I don't think they'll win.
This is a bus accident for the Ravens.
I don't think that game's as much of a blowout as everybody thinks it is. Oh no, it's at Giants. Never mind. It's going to be a blowout. Yeah, and Giants can't win at home to save their lives.
Yeah, they don't have a win, right, in New York?
Nope.
Not one win at home all season?
No, they don't.
They've been Dallas.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Thanksgiving Day, Dallas finally got a home win against the Giants.
Was there more stark?
Dallas hasn't had any home wins, but the one against the Giants?
Yeah.
That's wild.
Wow.
That's wild. There was years I felt like the Steelers definitely played better on the road. Like, I felt like that was an advantage for us for some reason, but, not in a while and not to that extent.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know we talked about this in the prep. Who was Tomlin talking about when he was kind of calling out that player? Yeah. He went through the week. He didn't work. He didn't put himself in a position to maximize his stuff. Let's get one of these beat reporters to find out who that player was he was talking about, man. I need to know.
I'm curious. I'll be curious to hear if anybody, and I listen to a lot of those reporters when they're on the radio shows and stuff. If anybody asks him about it, maybe I'll write into Ray Fittipaldo and see if he knows, in his mailbag or something, ask him who they were talking about, if he knows, because that was interesting. We talked about this, like you said, in prep. So did they ask them to redact the name? Do you know what I mean?
They must have.
We didn't know who the player was, because the players always say that Tomlin has no qualms about calling you out in front of everybody. The players tell stories about, Cam tells stories about how he brings up film from 10 years ago and be like, oh, look where you blew the tackle when we played, whoever back in, that year. And so, he doesn't seem to have an issue doing that right in front of everybody in the group meeting. So I'd be surprised if he was trying to be cagey, but it didn't sound specific. It did sound like it wasn't like a general.
No, it was definitely one person. He was pretty much lighting on fire in front of the team. So inquiring minds want to know, who's that guy?
I think he realizes the cameras are on, because I think he's going to generalize, because it's very rare he calls somebody out in a press conference.
Yeah,
and I think he has to understand that some of these meetings where the cameras are there, it's like a press conference. Not that, if he did call somebody out, I mean, just be good TV for HBO, but I mean, I don't necessarily think it's calling his player out, because, hey, this is a behind the scenes, and he wants to, make the point of somebody doing it. I thought it was interesting. Roman Wilson flashed on the screen, during that little montage.
That's very interesting.
So
if there's a guy to pick on, he hasn't played all season. Make an example of him. He doesn't look like he's going to play.
And according to Starkey and hints from the beat reporters, he's done something to piss off Tomlin. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. And essentially. And again, it gets into the behind-the-scenes dynamic. Omar Khan has got to be super pissed. My first-round draft pick got hurt. My third-round draft pick, you're not playing. We
haven't seen Omar Khan once in this thing, right?
The other ones are doing well, though.
Yeah, my last two drafts are pretty good. Maybe play the guys I picked.
Well, maybe they're not as good as we think. Maybe Roman Wilson isn't as good as we think.
Well, we got a Hall of Fame guy. Right? We got Hall of Fame Herbig.
No.
Yeah. Mason McCormick is there. Zach Frazier is there. I mean, there's been a route. So, but I was curious, that first meeting, I didn't see anything on the screen. Was that only offensive captains? Because I rewound it 3 times. I went back and counted the people around the table. I was like, okay, we got both quarterbacks. We got Pat and we got Najee in there. And so I was just curious, because I looked, I'm like, where's Cam? I was looking for any of the other defensive captains or special teams. That must have been an offensive meeting.
I thought it was offensive leaders or something. Do you know what I mean? But you're right, it could be captains.
And that was, I don't know why that stuck out to me, because for a defensive coach like Tomlin to highlight an offensive captains meeting, you would think that he would be more in depth or the more focused on it when it came to the defensive meeting. But for some reason, they specifically shot. I'm curious on if Tomlin said, you can use nothing from my other meeting, so they had no other option except for that. But I legitimately didn't know.
I have a feeling they let them take, whatever film they let them take. And then HBO, they definitely take way more footage than they use. And then HBO picks out and cobbles together what looks good and what, works well and what's of interest to people. And so, I wouldn't be surprised if there was footage from another meeting that just didn't make it in there.
Well, that's part of my point of being rushed, right? That little snippet in itself didn't really make sense to the whole thing, and why there wasn't defense too. And I think it's so rushed.
I can't remember what it was, but there was something from another team too, and I was like, why are we even?
Yeah.
Like, some of the stuff is funny and makes sense. Like, it's not relative. Like the whole Batmobile conversation, right? Like, that's just a funny inside look or whatever that isn't necessarily relative. But there was something that was said this week that I was like, why are we even showing this?
Well, I think people are gonna restart rethinking those Batmobile comments, because I don't know if you guys heard Joe Burrow's house was broken into during the Monday night game, and you go on,
right? They got Mahomes a couple weeks ago.
Yep. So if you go out and people are already probably targeting you, but if you go out and you say on TV, you're like, oh yeah, by the way, I got a Batmobile coming to my house. I spent a lot of money
on. Not a good idea.
And you're just so I bet there's I guarantee they brought security into it and had a meeting with all the players. Listen, we know you're on camera. We're talking. Do not talk about the stuff you buy. But that was a great point, because it felt rushed, and we have the Ravens back this week. They were on a bye. So it's going to feel even more. So they're going to have to pick and choose. And sorry, the other 3 AFC North teams, if it comes down to pick and choose, we all know who's getting the lion's share of that screen time. Because
Well,
is there a
it's
more
gonna be
stark
more
comparison
compressed with the
between?
Steelers? So that's going to be weird. Do you know what I mean? Our games happen faster.
Yeah.
So you don't have that like full week. So how does that work? And are we going to be way late and talking about like the middle game?
Unless they have like one episode that is like almost no Steelers, and then one episode that is just Steelers. I don't
with
know
their
how
schedule coming up, I mean, they got the
do that.
Eagles, Ravens, and Chiefs coming up. They have to highlight the Steelers. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, you would think the crown jewel of the show is Steelers Ravens week.
Yeah.
That's the okay. Here's the huge build up to this.
Well, that's going to monopolize everything, especially because at that point, Cincinnati and Cleveland, I mean, even if Cincinnati finds a way to hang around somehow, do you know what I mean? They're all but done. I mean, this battle's coming down to the Ravens and the Steelers. I'm sure they're hoping that game will be the deciding factor for the North. And
I'd like that. I miss those games, those late season Ravens Steelers games for the division that actually I miss those, the Immaculate Extension games. So they haven't happened in a bit.
Bengals do you get the schedule? Is that what you're going to say? Yeah, I was just looking at it too.
The Bengals got the Titans this week, so if they should win that game.
Yep.
The Browns.
Probably another win.
Always an interesting game, but should win. Then they get the Broncos. That's the interesting one. If they're in it, if they win those two games and then they beat the Broncos, they get the tiebreaker. Then they got a lot to play for that last week against us.
Yeah, we need.
I'm not just hoping for that.
Yeah,
I want to get to the last point, and we don't.
Nobody wants to be fucking with them the last week of the season.
Yeah, they'll be 7-8 going into that Broncos game.
Let's wrap it up.
Yeah.
Wrap
if
it
it
up
didn't matter for us, I'd almost be like, just give them the fucking game. I don't want anybody getting hurt. I don't trust their players.
Well, it doesn't. The whole schedule doesn't matter. There's only one game left that matters, and it's the Ravens. We beat the Ravens, we win the division.
Right.
Yes, I would love 12 wins. I would, but it doesn't matter. We beat the Ravens. We are the division winners, and then it's just seeding. And we're probably the 3 seed because I cannot see Houston getting to 11 wins.
Yeah.
Now, what stuck out to me, and nothing against Stefanski, but is there a more stark comparison between Stefanski and Tomlin? No. Tomlin is the guy who'd run through all four. Stefanski is that friend that you've known that every once in a while you're like, hey, is Kevin trying a little too hard?
Actually,
just a little too hard. That's what Kevin Stefanski reminds me of. It's like, he's a cool friend. You hang out a lot. And every once in a while you just hear other friends like, he tries too hard, doesn't he? He needs to calm down a little bit.
I kind of disagree. No, he's not. He doesn't come off as well as Tomlin. I'm not saying that. But I thought he was a lot better this week. I thought he came off as more relatable as a, hey man, you're screwed. And now it's just, what are you going to do to get the guys to buy in? And to his credit, I mean, he's certainly more engaging than Zach Taylor and
Jim Harbaugh.
Jim Harbaugh is,
man.
Wow, is that a
put you to sleep?
I mean, paint drying and grass growing have nothing to fear when when Harbaugh's on TV.
It was Stefanski who made the point, right? After Jameis threw the interception, he showed their top speeds for the week. I thought that was a great point, showing his team that, look, these guys didn't give up. Neither should you. You know, Teller that ran his fastest after 91 plays. That's good coaching. That's smart.
That was.
Pick up on that.
He was probably running to try to defend his wife up in the stands.
But you watch him on the sideline, and Jameis Winston throws a soul-crushing interception, and he's like, oh, no. Oh, boy. Oh, no. It's like he's got nothing going on in the sideline.
Fight right out of him.
Yeah, maybe it's that. Maybe it's 3 years in Cleveland, just beat the.
There's been a lot of talk on Cleveland social media that they want to go to DTR for the last few games. Now that
they got to stick with Jameis, man.
Yeah, I think they should.
Selfishly, I want to see that train wreck continue down the track.
I need more press conferences with Jameis. I'm now listening to them just because they're enjoyable, not because they mean anything to me.
Do they cut Deshaun after this year?
No. Oh, I hope so.
I mean, that's, man.
There's talk that they're just going to eat that.
It's $100 million.
Yeah, they're going to eat it. Move on.
Because he's never ever going to play in Cleveland.
He's just a distraction now.
Yeah. I don't see him ever playing again.
Well, you would have thought he wouldn't have played with Flacco, getting him to the playoffs.
They had to give it one. It's the owner, I guess, driving the Deshaun Watson playing things, and even he's – because Stefanski had it with him already.
after next year, it's still a big cap hit. But after next year, because I think they get 2 years of cap hit if they cut him this year. So I don't think it could happen. It might happen during the season.
They could do that post June 1st thing where it's the season hasn't started yet, but they can still cut him and it won't. And then, all that, not to get too in the weeds, but
the real question is, can they bring Jameis back? Because they sure as hell can't sign anybody else. I mean, you got to figure Sam Darnold, even if Minnesota doesn't bring him back, has earned $25-30 million.
Oh, yeah.
They have to draft a quarterback and play that quarterback because Jameis is going to, I don't know what his open market would be, honestly. Does anybody pay him to be a starter?
Probably not.
Probably not.
I mean, that's the thing is he's almost their best bet. Do you know what I mean? He knows the team. He knows the system. You're kind of going to have to suck because of the money situation, whether you like it or not. Do you know what I mean? You'll be hard pressed to find somebody unless they get, I don't know. Cause I mean, you can't even say they're going to get lucky in the draft.
There's not really good quarterbacks in the draft. Shador.
Now that you brought up, this is going to be in my head. I'm doing the math in my head about these next 3 weeks. I'm like, how is Hard Knocks going to do this? And I'm sitting here. I'm like, these are the three most interesting games that we have on our schedule remaining. It's the most interesting game that, as objectively as I can say, out of the entire AFC North, the stretch. And you have to include all three, and you can't. How do you do that?
They will. They'll compress it late. Do you know what I mean? Just like we saw late stuff in that first episode. So. Do you know what I mean? I think that's what they'll do. That next week they'll just compress it. Whether it's 2 days into one episode or whatever, because we're looking behind anyways. You know what I mean? So what's the difference?
That's true, because I don't want to miss any of those, and I don't want them to feel like they have to, like it's some television thing where they have to balance between two sides, and you have to. We showed a lot of the Steelers. The Steelers are having 3 games, and let's show the other. I don't want to see an entire thing of 3 other AFC North teams. I can't handle that.
Well, I think we're down to 3 now. I don't think we're going to see much of the Browns at all after this week. They're eliminated,
especially if they don't play Jameis. They don't play Jameis. There's no reason to show them.
Exactly, 100%.
Yeah, they'll get a token. They say the AFC North, so they're just like they did with the Ravens today, where they show the country club where they go to work every day. You know what I mean? We'll see something like that from the Browns. Yeah.
Yeah, but this is going to be an interesting stretch. It's everything Hard Knocks was hoping for. I'll say that.
Yeah, they're getting what they asked for.
And let's be honest, it's doubtful that the Browns can lose enough games to get in position for Shedeur Sanders.
Yeah, I didn't think so. They're in a bad spot.
Yeah, I would think I would be shocked if that's not Vegas.
It'd be hilarious, Cam Ward, because they compare him to Jameis Winston as it is. He throws for like 1,000 yards, but then he throws a bunch of picks too. That would be so Cleveland to draft Cam Ward and just keep it going. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
We took care of Cleveland in this game. That was good stuff.
We did, because Mean Green. I'm glad Mean Green reminds me of something that I often forget, because I wasn't raised in the country, and when you're international and trying to, you're a diehard Steelers fan, but I didn't have that. We live right next to Cleveland. Boy, I hated the Cleveland. I hated all that, but I didn't get that the distance.
How close it is.
Yeah, but so Mean Green, I appreciate that intensity, because it does remind me, like, you bring up the name Browns, everyone in Pittsburgh has to go, Browns suck, and then you can keep going back to what you're doing.
Right.
It's just the rules.
I learned something. I didn't realize the symbol for the Steelers came from Cleveland.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I did.
So that was interesting.
I remember I started out and I looked at the screen. I'm like, oh, you are playing with fire. This is how you're starting out. I was about to be really mad at that episode. I'm like, you're starting out by saying we're from Ohio. Oh, I'm going to be mad at you.
It's interesting. I think it's a big part of why there is so much animosity between these teams. Like it's, they're the Hatfields and the McCoys. You know what I mean? It's embedded in your DNA, and you can't help it. You know what I mean? Like.
The one quibble I had, and I know we're splitting with them recently, but this whole idea of, Cleveland's been up in the rivalry and Pittsburgh's been up. Okay, the Ravens, when they were the Browns, it was a true rivalry. There was a lot of back and forth. But the real Browns are in Baltimore.
Right.
Enjoy that, Cleveland fans.
Yeah.
Since they've been back in the league, until Baker Mayfield – the end of his tenure, Ben Roethlisberger was the winningest quarterback in Cleveland history, or Cleveland Browns renewed history. It's ridiculous that Baker finally passed him.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, but they got that playoff win, and they got the Myles Garrett thing, so it's kind of resparked the whole.
Well, they hang their hat on that playoff thing, and I just quit with them because, like, I think it's kind of pathetic. Like, that's all you've got. Like, that's it. That's the only thing you've got. And I'm sorry, I got to go polish my Lombardis. No time to fucking quibble with you.
I did feel a little old whenever, as a Steeler fan, whenever Joey Porter was talking about where he can't turn his neck to. I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember.
I love
just the first.
Just that little snippet.
Oh,
he's getting ready for the Browns game. He's like, I'm looking for a fight.
Yeah,
I'm looking for a fight. Like that. That's Joey Porter. It's just.
Mark Malone's joining us again. He said the Browns are first, man. I'm telling you, it is. It does feel like that very much. I say it all the time. I really feel for their fans. They are a loyal bunch, for the most part, and I feel for fans of teams that, just struggle as much as the Browns do.
They're all right, my family, my dad-in-law,
on Hard Knocks before we put a pin in this week's episode and start our prep for the Eagles next week.
Yeah,
I'm just going to be panicking about how we're going to fit these next 3 games in now. So thank you for that, Dave. That's what my week will be.
Zach will be on the phone with NFL Films when we get
I will be.
Asking questions and making suggestions. We will be back tomorrow, which is Thursday at 6:30 to do our Eagles prep show. So we would really love you to come and join us. If you've been here today, taking some time away from work to chat with us about Hard Knocks, we really appreciate it. We appreciate you watching. And then Friday night, the guys will be back for their legendary pick show at what time, Dave? I always
8:15.
8:15. Yep. And then
there is a change in the standings.
Oh,
tune in.
Oh, is that a surprise? We have to. Oh, we know.
Oh,
okay.
Zach did not. I did not have a good week, so I know that.
David will say he had a good week, even if he didn't.
Yeah.
He's not here to defend himself.
He didn't.
No.
Yeah, let's end the drama. He didn't.
Neither did I. Dave had a great week.
You didn't. All right. We appreciate everybody watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You can follow all of us on social media. If you're watching this later after it was filmed, please drop a comment. Let us know what you thought about the Hard Knocks episode. We're curious to hear everybody's thoughts. Have a good day.
No, it's over.
Well, bye.